Hello, Futurize. Hello, everybody. There are old faces and new faces here. So if you don't know me yet, I'm Pedro. I'm doing software development here at Futurize for about 2 years and have done some native Android, React Native, and sometimes you can find me gossiping about Flutter in the corridors of the office. So, yep, good to be here. So, this is also my Twitter. If you want to follow me, please go forward. I want to be a thought leader as well. So this is what thought leadership is about, right? So jokes aside, I want to know also from my own curiosity if there is someone here or if someone can shout on the other sides if they are already using hooks in production. Please raise your hands. Okay, there are some people here, like some hipsters in the crowd. So if you guys have problems with hooks when you start learning them, or if you're already learning, ask those three gentlemen, Fotis, Farzad, and Kim. They might help you, as I might need their help as well. So, hooks, they landed in React in February for the version 16.8, and for React Native, it came a bit late, like 2 weeks ago. So basically, what they let you use state and other React features without writing a class. So, okay, Peter, what does it mean? So it means that you write a function in React or React Native, and then you can hook onto the state and the React lifecycle methods. Those are basically the hooks that were shipped in React 16.0, and we have basic hooks and we have additional hooks. But more hooks are going to come in the new versions of React as well. And what I'm going to talk about today is how those hooks are so nice that they help you to write reusable and clean. The two, I'm just going to cover two of them, UseEffect and UseRef. But if you are a Dota fan like I was during my teenage times, then you should use Pudge. Probably many of you won't get the reference, but if you want to play Dota, I can show you. Okay, so I'm going to start talking about UseRef. So basically UseRef, it mimics, if you already know React, it's the ref React prop. And what does it mean when you use the function is that you get an initial value. So UseRef is going to return you a JavaScript plain object. But when you use the .current, then you get like an instance of a class, if you think about object-oriented programming. And this instance works as a sort of like a singleton. So the UseRef is going to exist during the lifetime of your React component. So the drawback of it doesn't notify you when the content changes, because its content is mutable. So the JavaScript object you get, it's mutable, but it doesn't notify you then change. So if you want to get notified by the change, I advise you to give a check on callbacks refs, so you can get notifications from that when the state of it changes. So UseEffect. So it's one of my favorites so far. It's my favorite, I think, hook. And I'm going to explain you why. So what is it? It's an imperative and possibly an effectful function. And then you might be thinking in your head, what the heck, Pedro? What does it even mean? So you might be feeling like cussing it right now. So basically, UseEffect is an asynchronous function. So I'm going to give you the beef out of it. So I'm going to try to be as simple as possible. So it bundles one of the most used lifecycles in methods in React. And those are did mount, did update, it will unmount. So you get those three out of the box when you are using UseEffect. So I'm going to show you a quick example of how does it work. Here you can see we have a super old fart React class with like the boring did mount and did update. Personally, myself, when I was learning React, I was having quite a hard time to understand like when the each life cycle and they were running, and like when I should use, like for example, if I want to make a fetch from an API, which one should I use? And if I want to use a subscription, where should I clean it up before like I finish my React component? So myself, I always had trouble with it. And then if you can see the other example, this is how you write the same code using a functional component using the hooks. So here, the only difference is that you have the UserState. That basically, like here, the UserState, it works in the same way as in the React class. So you might think like, oh, this is like marvelous. Like, look, that's so like the code is so small. Like you are writing this, and then you get this. So, and what it actually does, the UseEffect. So it's an asynchronous function. So the behavior is that React runs it in every render. So it's going to kickstart in the very moment that your like browser like gets painted or your phone screen gets painted. But you should be also like aware that to make sure that if you are using subscriptions or RxJS, for you to clean it up before you finish your function, I guess. But I'm going to show you how you do that. So here we have a function, friend status, and then I'm subscribing to a friend status in the first parameter here, in the first like part, not parameter. And then I return an arrow function here, unsubscribing the friend status. And then this is like recommended because if you don't unsubscribe the friend status, you might get like memory leaks as well. So it's optional. So you can get like an arrow function, or if you want to prefer using a named function, you can use it as well. So, okay, now we know what UseRef is, or sort of, and now we know what UseEffect does. So I'm going to talk quickly about animations in React Native. I'm not going to go too much into detail. I just want to show you what are the used libraries and some other tips. So in React Native, we use animated and layout animation. Layout animation, basically, you can animate like globally. So it's usually used if you want to make some transitions between one screen to the other one. And then animated is basically, you get like more like granular like way of animating your UI. So you can animate a view, you can animate an image, and so on. And with animated, you also get out of the box some physics elements like spring animations and timing and etc. So I recommend, if you are interested about animations, I recommend you to check ReAnimated. It's a library made by Christoph Magiera. He's also like former contributor to React Native's core. And ReAnimated, it's so nice library compared to the native ones because it gives you out of the box synchronous animations. So you won't have problems, for example, with passing animations through the bridge in the JavaScript, which might lead to some like poor animations like rendering. So your FPS might go down because of that. So I'm going to try to do some code demo. I hope we have time. Yes, we do. I'm going to show you quickly some of the and how to make your own custom hooks. Okay, so what I did was I wanted to show you that custom hooks, they have a good thing is that they don't share state. So even if I introduce two elements in this UI, one is one box that I will be animating, and the second is a counter. So the counter changes its states a lot. So it means that for every like incremental value that I add to this count state, then my UI is going to be re-rendered. And then I would like to show you that it doesn't give any impact on the animation itself because it's a custom hook. So here I have box, and here I have like the class component, like the old way that you would make a class component. So here I have animated value, which starts with 1, and then component did mount I set to the timeout for the animation to start to pause. And then here I have my pause animation. So here I'm using timing, which is basically it interpolates the value of my scale, which is 1 to 1.2. And then it scale up and scale down. And here also in the start method of the animated library, I'm passing a callback, which is going to make my animation to like never stop. So it's going to scale up and scale down. And here I'm passing inside of a sequence like array, which means that I'm combining both. Otherwise it would just like scale up. So you need to use sequence. So here's like the render method, and this is like what I intend to do. So here, as you can see, the counter is like happening, and then you have also the animations, the pulse animation. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you how it's like the same code could be done if you write your own custom hooks. So let's see. So I'm not going to go through too much typing because I don't think it brings value for this talk, but let's see. Okay, so here I have my use pulse, which is basically like it receives a delay, which I want to introduce like if I want to change the velocity of how the pulse happens, I can do it. So here I'm using the reference. So I'm keeping the reference of the animated value inside of the pulse. And then I have the same use pulse animation. And here I'm using the UseEffect function, which is that I'm setting the timeout and then I'm pulsing the animation with the delay that I was using the parameter of the function. And here I return the current scale. So here, this would be like the version of the same code, but with the hooks. And actually, this is just a wrapper function which I wrote just to pass down the state of the counter to the app component. So this is actually doesn't bring anything new. Yeah. So what is missing here is that I have to use effect and use ref. So they come already in React. And let's see if they're going to work. I hope yes, please. No, it's not working. That's super nice. Let's see what happens. Actually, I was training this before this presentation, but as you can see, it's okay. Can't find component. So if you had some users that would be seeing this application, probably your user would die if they had epilepsy or something like that. But let's see. Let's go to the function. But yeah, if I've seen my UseEffect function, I forgot to do two things that I mentioned in the talk. One of the things is that I should return an arrow function with to clear the timeout to avoid memory leaks. So I pass timeout here. And then the second thing is, I have to reload. And then the second thing that it's going to do the same, but inside of the UseEffect, we have a thing called Dependency Array. That it means that, because what UseEffect is doing now, it's running in every render. So it's getting this infinite loop of rendering. So that's why it's bouncing too much. So I have to pass this dependency array. And then when I do that, the pulse effects, they run smoothly, because I'm telling to UseEffect that, hey, UseEffect, I'm passing this array, so you should just rerun my function once. You shouldn't run more than once. So this function is also good, because if you want to have this, like when you have this component did update, it also gives you, it works like similar to the component did update if you want to implement this behavior inside of this function. So if I pass something like count here, I'm saying to this function that, hey, UseEffect, please just like render this part of the code when my count changes, so I can trigger this event and passing, for example, like count or props.count. So just change when the props.count changes as well. So it's quite similar to the behavior of the component did update. Okay, so what I wanted to highlight with this demo is that how much code I saved also. So if you can see like how I wrote the first, like the class component, so it was like this. And then I can like show you now the, like I have my own function here, which I can put in a different file. Like I haven't found ways of organizing this like in my code yet. But then your class function, if you write it in a functional way, then it would be like this. And you also can, for example, since I'm using different like pulses, so I have scale 1 and scale 2, and here I'm passing the props of scale 1, and here I'm passing the props of scale 2. So if I want to change the behavior of one of the functions, then I pass a different delay, and then I save it. So my pulses animations, they behave in a different way as well. So it's like reusable, so I can like do different sort of animations with the same piece of code. So okay, let's go back. So I want to give you also some tidbits about hooks. There's some catches in it. If you want to make your custom hook, you should use the word use and then followed by the noun. This is like the recommended version of it from the React team. So also use hooks at the top level of your function, because the hooks, they are executed by order. So also make them in a way that if they are on the top, then it's easier also for you to debug. Because if you put them, for example, in for loops and while loops and so on, they are also not recommended, because it's getting like hella difficult to debug them. Don't call them from JavaScript functions. And I was actually talking with Fotis a bit before this talk that custom hooks itself, they are JavaScript functions. And this is recommended by the React team, but they don't give a further explanation of like why you shouldn't call them inside of JavaScript functions. This is like probably one question I should make to the developer god called Dan Abramov. Like people like to to say that he's. And don't call it inside of React classes, because they simply won't work. They were like made to run inside of the functional components. But if you want those rules to be enforced, you can use the ESLint plugin for it. It's already available. And a last thought is that be super thoughtful the way you write your custom hooks, because you could put too much of spaghetti code, and you should be aware of the single responsibility principle. So write your hooks in a concise and cohesive way. So why did I make this talk? And this is like my conclusions. I didn't know what hooks were like 5 months ago before when they were released, but I learned them while I was doing this presentation, and I got like motivated to study more about them, because when I saw it, I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like, it's super like easy to understand the code. The hooks, they are reusable, and you also like get like many like different kinds of behaviors. You can use it in animations, you can use it in state, and you can use it in layout effects, and so on. So here are some references. I would like to show you before the talk ends. There's this like custom hooks website, which is I just got to know by Dennis, who is sitting there. He showed me that there's this super nice website like where people from the community are making their own like hooks. So it works as a sort of like cookbook. So if you want to find something that might be useful for your project, you can like check these use hooks, and then if it suits you and if the code is not like spaghetti as well, then you feel free to use it. So yep, that's it. Thank you all for the attention.
Thank you, Pedro. Do we have questions?
Thanks, Pedro. Just not a question, but if you like the idea of hooks as primitives, you can also use them outside of the React world. This guy, Kyle Simpsons, I guess, known as Getify, username on Twitter, the author of You Don't Know JS. He created this library called TNG Hooks, which just basically adds the idea of hooks for as an abstraction to JavaScript. You can just use it whenever you want. It's not just dependent on React right now.
With plain JavaScript.
Yeah, it's just plain JavaScript objects. Yeah, so
Nice.
It's not tight coupled to the DOM tree or like the component tree of how React works, but it's just generally available in JavaScript if you want to use it.
Cool.
Cool stuff. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.